Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Erb and Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Be Extraordinary podcast. What is the number one bottleneck for an insurance business, a small business, or any business? And I think we're going to discuss that today. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Mr. Taylor Young, Mr. Rod Erb with me, and we are going to riff and get into what we believe is the biggest bottleneck that we see with just different individuals and different people that we work with, and what has been consistently shown up in Erb and Young over the course of the last decade, and that is creating success stories to fuel recruiting and finding talent, developing talent, and continually keeping good talent is the number one thing I would believe, and I think you guys agree too, that keeps people from moving to the next level. So why is it so hard, and how can we manage that? How can we move forward that? And what are some strategies and some techniques that can be used in order to continue to move the ball forward on that? We're going to unpack that today. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Solid as a rock.
Like a steel bullet.
Wow, those are two very definitely impenetrable deals there. So, man of steel, and I don't know. What
Solid
are you?
As a rock.
Solid as a rock,
Solid
dude. The
as a
Hulk.
rock. How about you?
That's awesome, man.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, BY. I just want to hit on just when you open that, I immediately think of why does it take? It's easier as a human. You talk about success stories too. When you see something done in others, you see it in yourself sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when you first get started and it's just you are that model for something. You're that inspiration for that person to follow. But as you grow past you, and there's maybe a couple people, there's 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and you're recruiting 6, 7, 8, 9, the 10th person, yep. They're looking for proof in the pudding, right? They're looking for, you've explained to me the benefits, you've sold me the dream, you've explained for me the platform that we've referenced to allow my own personal development. But at the end of the day, has anybody done this yet? Yeah. Is there a success story? So that's kind of what we're talking about.
The first thing that came to my mind when you open that is, I remember the days when we sold the dream and we were like, man, we're so excited about where we're going. Come with us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I feel like we got to a point where we felt the urgency to get to this point, rather, right, to where we could just point to team members and go, don't take my word for it anymore. There you go. Yeah, talk to this person.
Beginning with the intention that 100%. Was the end game. And that's I want to talk to the listener today on that, because I know for our journey, it's so clear now. It's just there's kind of these 3 phases. Number 1, there's the phase where it's just you, and you're selling a dream. And what is a dream? It's a story, right? It is a story. It's a success story that hasn't happened yet.
That's right.
Right? You're compelling somebody to believe in a future that doesn't exist already. So you are telling a story. It's just that there's no proof yet. So they're believing in you. And I think there's almost an advantage to that, because you don't have to have any proof. You just have to have belief.
That's right.
Right? But then becomes the next stage. You have 2 or 3 people. There's a couple people that have gone along the ride. Now comes the danger zone, because it's not enough for you to just sell the dream and for it to be a belief, because the 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th person is thinking, man, I buy into this belief, and whether it's the operator, the manager, the leader, the founder, whatever it is, but they're also going, well, this has been around for 2-3 years. How's it working for that guy?
That's right.
How's it working for her? And so the proof is not important because they don't believe that you can do it. The proof is important because you have time to be able to show that you could get something done or you didn't get something done. And that's not to say if you're not where you want to be or where you need to be that you're not able to recruit, but it is to say that it is going to be very difficult for you, because they're always looking and saying, yeah, but how did it work for that guy? Mm-hmm. And today, I think one of the things I want to share with everybody is for us, it really was intention to say, it was not I would venture to say 100% of the success that exists inside this organization, which, I mean, I feel like we're just getting started, is predicated off of the success stories of the people who took the leap of faith to be here. Without them seeing the success, without them doing the things that we needed them to be able to do, the other people wouldn't have come along.
100%.
And getting to the 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, there's now 45 people, you just don't get there because it's not enough to say, how's it working for you, the operator, or for you, the founder, because at the end of the day, now it doesn't, to me, it doesn't really matter anymore.
They can't relate as much. They don't see themselves in you anymore as much as they would have at the very beginning phases. You know, I think about our first employee and team member, and I think about his name's Matt Ekberg, and I just think about how much influence that he's grown within this company because, and you talk about success stories, it's almost like every barrier that you level up to as a business for us has been completely indicative of more success stories from people within the company, meaning at the very beginning, you have zero success stories, right? It's just a dream. And then at the end of phase 1, phase 2, maybe you have one success story that you're pointing to and you're recruiting to.
Yep.
And then, maybe phase 3, you have multiple people that have come in and done the thing in different vantage points that kind of have different stories that gives you a broader audience to be able to relate to.
And that's what I would say is like that. To me, recruiting at scale is so much easier. It's just so much easier. It's the phase 2 that's the hard part.
Right.
And I think that's the phase that you see a lot of people get stuck because, and that's kind of what I want to unpack here today. And I'd love to hear your thoughts of what is it about the first stages is it is a success story. It's just a success story that hasn't been realized yet. Right. It's you're selling the dream, which we're always selling the dream, but it's a success story that hasn't been realized. But that phase 2, there's just a much more emphasis on, well, how's it working for those people around you? And if you can't get past that phase, it's to me, it has very much to do with the fact that people have come in with dreams and goals and things that they wanted and they weren't able to get that. Mm-hmm. Would you guys agree with that?
I do. And I think when it's a success story that hasn't been told yet, right? It's one in just out there. Selling the dream is just a success story that hasn't been told yet. But then phase 2, to your point, phase 2 really comes with time, right? You need to have time. And I think, how's it working for you? It's like, well, I'm still in it.
Yeah.
And I think about our marketing and sales team specifically, right? It's like most of them are in the build phase. Mm-hmm. They're in the ugliest, dirtiest, loneliest, most least gratifying phase of the journey, right? Just like it was for us. It was dark. It was lonely. It was, what are we doing? Do we still want to do this? For the longest time, 12 years later, we're like, it's worth it. Number one, it's not going to take them 12 years, hopefully.
Right.
But if it does, oh well, it's worth it at 12 years. Yep. I just think I think what makes it tough in that phase 2 is that people don't realize it's time.
That's a good perspective.
You mentioned Matt Ekberg, right? And you mentioned Matt Ekberg's influence. It's through the roof. When Matt talks, people listen.
Yeah.
Matt is 11 years into his journey.
Yeah.
Right? He's 2 years out on his own.
Yeah.
So there's 9 years of Matt. Yes, he still had reach. He still had influence, but he was creating the very first dream. He was living out and creating the very first third party that we could point to. So I just think that the forgotten part of phase 2 is just because I sell you a dream doesn't mean that next week it's going to be reality.
Yeah,
there's a long period of time. Hopefully you get better because you borrow from what we've done, and then the next layer borrows from what they've done, and so on, to where you can compress that time. But we can't forget about the time.
That's a great perspective.
And you mentioned about stories, right? What is this saying? Facts tell, stories sell. It's no different in recruiting. And a story is not just this mystical make-believe. No, this is a level of belief. And this is just, it's more of a proof in the pudding. Now, here's the practical part for me that I speak to that you're talking about. Time is certainly it, right? You got to let enough time go by. To try to manufacture and create a success story on your first hire that doesn't really exist, people will see through that, right? And that person's not going to have the level of beliefs to have influence when you bring them in and you ask them to share their journey and so on and so forth. So let me just kill that right away. This is not something you can fake. That said, I also think that it's something you should be paying attention to and are after, meaning you bring somebody in that has a high level of potential, great personality, strong ambition, very coachable. Yeah, sure, they have work to do. So do we all. But you see something in them. They see something in themselves. I feel like there's an opportunity as a leader to pull them along at first, right? You go out and you grab their shirt and you bring them into your world. You spend and invest a disproportionate amount of time with that person that shows enough potential, is really coachable, willing to be able to invest to make sure that you give every opportunity to create a success story, right? And that's where I feel like the practicality comes for me.
Well said, right? It's like, it's what we learned early on. It's like they're babies. Whatever industry you're in, if you're new, you're a baby, right? Even if you've got experience in a new organization, you're still a baby. You've got to be aware to go to them. Here's where we're at. Here's where, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to come with you, but here's where we're going. And you got to do that together. I think that's super insightful.
Hey guys, Brett Young with the Be Extraordinary podcast. I want to take a moment and just say thank you so much for listening. Without you guys listening, this wouldn't be possible. Appreciate you guys so much. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, everywhere. You can also go to beextraordinarypodcast.com and all of the feed, or you can watch the video playbacks and subscribe to any whichever podcast feed that you enjoy most. Lastly, if you've not joined the Be Extraordinary community, please go to the bottom of the website. Go to beextraordinarypodcast.com. Go to the bottom. You will see the Extraordinary community right there through Telegram. You literally just click the button. It's free. There's a bunch of other amazing professionals and individuals that live by this philosophy, having incredible dynamic conversations about what they experience every day and becoming better. So again, thank you so much for listening. You guys rock. Be extraordinary. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about intention, right? Beginning with the end in mind. I would ask, are we starting the journey with that hire, with the recruiting phase, knowing that we, at this point in this time, we can't afford for them not to be wildly successful, right? It's the number one most important thing when recruiting early on is making sure that that person is going to be successful. Now, you can't do it for them, like you said, Rod, right? Like you can't shortcut the journey. Like they've got to be willing to get the bruises and the cuts. But when they get beaten off the path, you're there, like you said, Taylor, you're there to pick them up, because it's not just their future, it's your future. Like you're married into this thing. You're tied into this thing together. Like I know when Matt went out on his own, when he was, opened the St. Pete office, it's just like the reason he's the guy is because it's like, look, this first one, it has to be successful, right? For us, for our sake. And knowing that, being aware of that is important. Whereas I think once you get to a little bit at scale, it's like, man, I wonder if they're going to rise to the occasion. But I don't necessarily have the time and the flexibility and the capacity to be able to give that type of investment to them, where maybe they have a team lead and they have other people that are doing that, which those people should be doing the same thing. But to know when you're running at this level too, to know that it may change the person that you recruit too. If you're just hiring somebody to get in there and do the job, you're missing the point of why you're hiring. Because can that person be a mouthpiece for what you represent? Can they be the marketing billboard for what you represent? And if the answer is no, but they could do the job, the answer is, well, then I got to find somebody else.
That's what I was alluding to earlier. It's like,
doesn't mean you don't hire them.
Yep.
It just means that you're not confused on what you're hiring or who you're hiring, and have an understanding that the job's not done.
And maybe you need to hire two people, because it's like, oh, I need somebody to do the job, but I also need this person to be, because if you know that the number one asset that you have is your success stories, everything changes.
I agree.
Again, to me, that is if you're going to go to the next level, you reach down, and what is the equity of your company? The equity is the amount of people that come in and get what they want. Because if enough people come in and get what they want, you can go out and compel other people to believe that they can get what they want. Right. And that becomes this self-sustaining, unbelievable cycle.
Well, but I also think, though, too, Brett, I mean, we had that philosophy starting out, right? I mean, I think there's two identities of operators. I think there's two identities of business owners, right? There are people that don't believe that way, I think there are people that say, come in, here's your job, here's your seat, here's what you got to do. Come in, do your job, do it well, and leave.
Well, see, so that may be the question. It's like, what is it about that phase that kind of creates this bottleneck for people that they just can't get past this, or not that they can't, it's just that this next phase is very difficult. Because I believe this phase is the most difficult. with any business, in my opinion. I think this is the phase that is the most challenging. If I look back on our journey, I believe it's the most challenging. I think it takes the most work. I think it's more tiring. I think you're putting in a lot of effort. You're dealing with challenges with people's personalities. You're trying to, like Taylor said, you're pulling them along. It emotionally wears you out. And I would say that's totally normal, and that's how it looks. But it's a very critical moment. And is that the reason? Is that because we're looking to hire people to grow the business instead of looking to hire people to create success stories?
Well, you just mentioned it. If that's what most people think, I do think that's why most businesses have the bottleneck, right? Because if you do have that mindset, that's okay. It's actually, I think that's quicker. I actually think you can build a business much quicker by doing it that way, because you just go, boom, I'm going to create a need, hire a position. Create a need, hire a position. Create a need, hire a position. Yeah. But culture,
body.
And exponential growth takes time to lay that foundation. And you could argue, right, the culture doesn't come from the ownership group. It doesn't come from that, right? To me, the true culture comes from the other people that don't own the company. Yeah. Do they believe in the mission? Yeah. You know, and is there not just one of them, there's two of them, there's three of them. That's a really powerful culture when most people really believe in the mission. So, and I think your first success story is somebody, and for us, somebody's going to come in, they're not going to have the same level of belief as you, right? And that's going to take time. That's going to take intention. But I think it's worth it practically, because when that clicks and when that belief happens and when that success story happens, now your level of work drops tremendously in recruiting, because you're now able to point to that person.
You said something there about culture that I think is worthy of talking about too, because I think there's two identities there too. If the three of us had an idea for culture and our collective personality was the only option for culture, it's very different than the collective personality of the team, to your point, right? That takes longer. We're not saying, hey, here's how we think it should be. Here's our personality. You fit in with this. We're not saying that. I think what, to your point is, if you know there's no option, then that's maybe a quicker route. But a more authentic route is, what is the true culture? What is the true collective personality of the organism? That's, to me, what we've set out to accomplish. Oh, I mean, which to me is why it's completely different.
And you could unpack that, because we've had challenges in the past where there was just, let's just take the idea of that there was so many men, and they in essence duplicated a lot of our personality, and we had to say, hey, look, we're not going to grow an organization that's exactly like us, right? Like, our mission has to go beyond, and the culture has to go beyond, the three dudes, right? Like, and so we've worked really, really hard, and it was very challenging to really pour into female leaders to rise to the occasion and embody the character elements of what that culture is. And it doesn't happen overnight. So to your point, I think that was one of the biggest challenges in that early phase, because you're duplicating what you are, but how do you move past that and pull in different personalities, different genders, different people that maybe don't relate as much to you?
Totally. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's true, right? At first, that's very effective. You're hanging out with people like you, and you're naturally attracting people like you. And it's very helpful, because the first people we recruited are very similar like us. People interested in sales, people interested in marketing, happen to be men, because most people that we hang out with, their friends that are men, right? It was not intentional at all. It was just that's the way it worked for the first 5, 6, 7 team members. Now, the real example I'll give you, and where I think our culture shifted for the better, is that when we did an acquisition and we went from an office full of men, 7 of us, to an office full of women, and in a market that we didn't know anybody, we were forced to be able to understand a different part of our culture. And it also was a culture of everyone comes in, learns the business, goes to sales and marketing. Everyone comes in, gets competent enough, and then they move up, quote unquote, up. And we were in a position where we now wanted to create a success story within service, within relationship management, within what was the Melbourne office, and create a compelling enough vision that not every single person felt like, to have success in our company, they have to come in, learn the business, and go to sales.
Well, God, that's so good, because this is so important. I hope this helps somebody, because why do people want to go down that track? Because we were creating success stories.
There were already a couple of them lined up. So they were looking at people they wanted to follow. They wanted success for themselves.
So those success stories pulled people into that track, right? Like, so because we had 2 or 3 of those, they go, well, man, there's a track. It's already laid out. All I got to do is follow the bouncing ball. Okay, cool. Well, I'll just be pulled into that direction, almost subconsciously, right? But to your point, when did that happen, and when did that change? And how did that happen?
I think it was when Amanda Trammell on our team went the natural route that we had always done. We had been selling this dream that you can have success in relationship management, but it wasn't realized yet. There wasn't a success story to point to. Yep. And she made the skip to marketing and sales, via more than anything, the offer and the ask of the promotion that we gave, based upon her understanding that, hey, that's just what's next. That's another level, right? Right? Not finding the fit, taking my personality, season of life, and all the other factors into account, but that's just the next level. I want to have success. I'm driven. So now I'm going to go to marketing and sales. And what she found was that at that point, for all the reasons that I just mentioned, it just wasn't the time, the situation, the personality, the season of life, right? So she came back to relationship management. And this is easily one of our most talented team members, one of our most influencer team members. And so to see that, and then now she got a different perspective, different lens, came back, and then absolutely annihilated it in relationship management.
That's a great.
And she created a success story within that, that now when we create
they're stacking
a new opportunity in relationship management, you're able to point to Amanda.
Yeah.
But that wasn't there before. So I feel like whether it's you're starting a new company or you don't have success in a new department, which we didn't. We didn't have success in relationship management and service for a long time because all the talented people went to sales at first. Right. And then that shift has let us, again, be able to recruit and retain a broader audience. Because if you're so pigeonholed on the people that look just like you, have beards, are men, are interested in marketing and sales.
Man, you messed that up. You had such a good thing going.
You blew it.
You're missing out on so much talent that is available to you.
Such a distraction now.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good perspective. It's almost as if to say that any deficiency within your company is one success story away from blowing it open, right? It's like, hey, we're really struggling in this area, whatever it is. It's like, okay, perfect. Well, then you just haven't created a success story yet.
I'm going to stop you. One of the strengths of our company right now is relationship management, specifically the team that Amanda is leading, right? And that's because there was a success story that was created that has perpetuated when you've given it enough time, that now it has become a deficit and it is now a strength.
Well, you referenced the merger, the acquisition in 2018 with Coverage Pro in Melbourne. All guys infiltrated with a whole team full of women, right? It was like we had to give attention where we had never really given attention, right? And that didn't happen in 18. It didn't necessarily happen in 19, but eventually with Amanda making a jump and then realizing where she wanted to be, moving back to that. I think that was the catalyst for relationship management, getting the attention and getting the resources that we always believed just had to be given to the marketing and sales side of things.
Well, and also, but it's we're marketers, right? Like, so
that's our bias.
It's just your culture in the beginning is much more about your personality, back to what you're saying, than it is about the embodiment of really, truly the mission and the culture that you're trying to perceive, right? Our culture and our mission is to create extraordinary lives, right? It's to epitomize excellence in what you do, in everything. But for us, that's different than for other people. But how do all those people fit into that vision, right? Not just the people that want to do what we do. Mm-hmm. How does everybody fit into that vision? And I think that is a very difficult question. I think it's an important question. I think everybody will come across that question at some point, and you will meet a lot of friction because it'll be frustrating because you go, why don't they get it? Why doesn't somebody understand? Like, why does it? And it's because
why don't they value what I value?
Right. And it's because you're looking at it through only your lens. And if you do that, you miss out on so much. You just miss out on so much. And it's a normal thing. Like it's just a human trait, but it is a process within the success story continuum that be careful duplicating the exact same thing that you are doing, because it's very difficult to build a business with just you, right? You probably have a lot of deficiencies and things that you don't do well that you're going to need to have other people to be able to compensate for that. And you need to be much more focused on creating success stories in those areas than it is in the areas that you're good at.
I'll also go back to Amanda and also say that in that Coverage Pro acquisition, in that overwhelm of this unique challenge that we were working through, there was a little bit of a light there that we saw mutually in each other, like, wow, that person, they have potential. They're really willing. They have the ability to develop into somebody that can lead, right? And again, a disproportionate amount of time, both on her end and our end, was invested to be able to learn how to lead together, to build together, to collectively create new ideas on how we make this position more attractive. And again, I go back to, kind of the first principles we started with, is that, when you do recruit somebody and you do identify that they have the potential, is just ask yourself, are you doing everything possible to help them, help them kind of thing, and create that success story? Because I think it's a pull, it's a push, it's you can't do it for them, but there's something about that intensity to know how important those success stories are, that you don't waste the potential when they're right there.
I have a question for you, because both of you guys, let me ask you this, because I'm sure, and then there's a lot of times that I remember back in this journey, which I think a lot of people can relate to, that, maybe you want somebody to be that success story. Maybe you believe someone could be that success story. Maybe let's just assume that you realize how important it is to create a success story. You buy into this, thing, and you say, but when do you spend the time, and when do you not spend the time? When do you realize that this might not be the right person and I need to go find somebody else? And when do I realize that they're babies and I need to invest more time? Talk to me about maybe an experience that you have with a specific team member in the beginning, that you were frustrated that they weren't getting it, or they weren't in your perception, they weren't getting it. What did you do to bring them along? Or what was the situation where you kind of said, okay, I need to just let it be what it be and go find another person?
I think I have a blanket answer to that. I have a couple of examples of some things that have happened over the years. I've pulled people aside. I've read books with people independently to try to kind of get them on the page of development. Start there. That's an easy one. So
you say, hey, let's read this together.
Let's read this together. This is a book that we believe in. It was a slight edge. It was a team member that we went through that exercise together. It was a neat exercise, but it just wasn't clicking. It wasn't clicking. And unfortunately, that team member left. But the beautiful part is that team member came back,
and we've had a lot of that.
And we've had a few of that. So that's one instance where I've kind of done something individually, or kind of really gone to somebody's level and tried to. I don't want to say spoon fed, but it's like, let's just do a 101 here, right? Let's just get real basic.
That's cool.
But the one thing that I'll tell you that I'm realizing now is, if you've got somebody that's got a good attitude, somebody that's got a hunger to learn, grow, whatever, and is coachable, man, I mean, those are the people that I just gravitate toward that, right? It's like, versus the people that kind of are just, and this is just in anything.
So that's your filter.
That's right. My filter.
So your filter is, if that person is hungry, willing, and still yearning for it, there's there's nothing off limits.
Nothing off limits.
But if you start to see that turn,
and I don't even know that it's a turn, Brett. I just think that it's like, maybe it's a complacency. Maybe it's just like, I'm not getting this, but I'm not real hungry, or I don't really show the hunger, or I don't really show the vigor. It's like, I just think that for me, if I know that I've got anybody, I mean, this is just in life. If you got somebody, a friend that's just constantly hungry, it's like, to me, it's like, give me those people, and that's where I would want to spend my time with anybody in any phase, or anything that they would perceive me as wanting help from. Those are the people that I'd want to just jump off a building for.
That's a great answer.
I love that. You just mentioned the attitude and effort thing, right? We're not talking about success stories of the best insurance agent and know-it-alls, right? We're talking about people that believe what you believe, share the values, and can really align with the mission of the company and wanting more out of the experience. So I think you just said something. I mean, man, some people are just, when you coach somebody and they're coachable, you want to do it again. You want to help them. When you invest time and energy into somebody and they give you energy back, right, in the form of listening or applying the things that you're saying to their work, you want to do that more, right? When somebody's just pleasant, right, and they have good etiquette and they are respectful of your time and they value it, you want to give them more of it. That's so right. I'll be, there's some team members that in the past, you just don't have that. So for me, there's like a cost of diminishing return to where, hey, look, I'm not seeing that this was reciprocated, and I'm doing the equation, whether it's consciously or it's more subconscious, that I'm just not going to invest as much time because I don't believe that it's worth the return long term. And that may sound a little bit selfish, but it's just the reality of the situation. And I also think, to your point, I think everyone's got their seasons. You're not going to be able to do it for somebody. It's like, you know, what do they say? When the student's ready, the coach appears. Mm-hmm. And I've had times that I feel like I've invested a lot, and it just wasn't the right time for that person. Right. But they came back around in a different season, and then it was like, man, they're on fire. Their beliefs through the roof. Yeah. Now it's somebody that is pouring back into me because, you know, but trying to force it, trying to overly invest when it's not being reciprocated. Sometimes it's just not the season that they're able to hear what you're trying to say.
And I think you said something there that you can't skip over belief, right? It like to do anything, you have to have belief in it, right? And if you don't have belief, you have to borrow it. So you have to have people around you that are worthy of borrowing it from. So I think that's something that's easily overlooked, but the one thing that I'll say in that line is there's time to gain belief. Like if you're throwing something at me that I haven't yet understood, I have to believe in it, right? And over time, I'm going to believe in it. But there's a period of time, you talk about diminishing return, where it's like, there's been plenty of time. You either believe in this or you don't. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, I think that ties into what I said a minute ago. If I'm feeling like you're not buying into something over an adequate period of time, my phone rings and it's you. It's like my priority is not to drop what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that sounds harsh, but I don't apologize.
Well, I think that's important because you have to sort, and that's the indicator.
It's a constant game.
And at the end of the day, you're trying to get time with people that can improve your life, that can help you. And just like we're doing that, you know, we're trying to reach out and hang out with people that, you know, we can learn something from, and there's a certain level of respect and a certain level of things that go along with that. So I mean, I think that's good, you know, radical candor there. So, but it sounds like to me it's the patience. There's this dichotomy of being patient, knowing when to push and knowing when to coach, but also knowing when to be patient. And it's a dance back and forth that you really got to know if somebody's receptive, if they have the hunger, they have the desire, and they really, really want it. But deep down, if somebody really, really wants it and it's genuine, authentic, you know, you're going to pour into that person. If they're not as receptive, you're more than likely going to sort and you're going to go look for that next person. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, I just think, you know, good businesses are success-making machines. And if success story making machines, and the more success stories that you can create, the bigger opportunity you have for growth. Because at the end of the day, I don't think anybody would argue with the fact that people are looking for something that can impact their life. People are looking to join an organization that's going to give them a better future than what they have today. I don't care if that's because your product does something really cool in the marketplace and you belong to something that's powerful and it makes you feel good, or it's a business that can give you an income, it can give you lifestyle, it can give you autonomy, it can give you the ability to be closer with your family, it can give you the ability to connect with your community. Whatever it is, people are looking for that. And if your success stories align with that messaging, now you have this bulletproof proof that reinforces someone's ability to take the leap of faith. Because at the end of the day, they've got to leave where they currently are to go and join your team. And there's not a lot of things that are more life-changing, obviously, besides all the major ones, than starting a new job, starting a new career. It's a big jump. And so removing that friction and giving people that evidence and proof, I think, is really cool. So, man, any last parting thoughts you guys have?
Yeah, you just said something I think is worth articulating, is that success looks different for every person. You know, and I think we hit on that between sales and service and so on and so forth. It's not just about, you know, seeing that, oh, hey, this person's making the money I want to make. They may not value money as much, right? They may value, oh, this person's got a really good quality of life, and they've been able to successfully integrate their work with their kids, with their spouse, right? Or it might mean different things for different people, and opening up and spending time on what success is within your organization, what success is within a position, and then being able to take those success stories and then tell them in a very authentic way is, I think, kind of what we're talking about.
Very, very similar thought. And you said it, I don't need to restate it, but it's like, why? What's your why? You know, what success looks like for you is very similar to me.
If you won, what does that look like?
Yeah.
If you came in here and you got everything you want and you won, what does that look like?
Right. And some people have a hard time with why, but they would have an easier way of answering that question, which I think it all ties together.
That's awesome. Well, this is the last thing I would share that I wanted to, kind of tie it off with is I think one of the mechanisms and components to leveraging success stories is celebrating them. I don't think we do a good enough job as a society and as a business community of celebrating the wins of other people within our organization, right? Like, so if you've identified what is a win and that's a win for them, broadcast that. Put that out in a newsletter. Put that up on your social media. Send a text message to your whole team. Like, do an interview with them and do content. Like, whatever the case may be, recognize them with an award. Recognize them in front of their peers. Give them a shout out. Like, they're celebrating and recognizing people's wins is the marketing that comes from success stories. What good is it to have success stories if you don't broadcast and market that person is having success? And like you said, we don't know what success looks like, because if we're only celebrating just one component of it, well, then we're basically saying that the other things aren't success. Important. And so if we're not celebrating and we're not broadcasting and we're not marketing that success to our team or even to the community, then what we're really saying is that's not success. And therefore, you're going to have a hard time attracting those same people into your organization. So it's like having a really, really good product but never telling anybody about it, So really good thoughts, pretty awesome. So I appreciate you guys. Awesome to kick it with you again.
Yeah, man.
To everybody listening, happy December. Hope you guys have an amazing Christmas. Happy holidays. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Remember, be
extraordinary.